back into Kuwait. And here at home, what could be the first big snowfall of 1993 is underway. The snow could create some problems with the morning rush hour.
This is Channel 2 News, Sunday.
Good evening. Tonight, Iraq crosses the line again.
In what UN observers are calling a flagrant violation of Kuwaiti territory, a raiding party of Iraqis entered Kuwait early Sunday and seized weapons under UN protection, including 4 Silkworm missiles. A United Nations observation mission says the Iraqis crossed into northern Kuwait near the city of Qasr and returned with the contents of several military bunkers there. The incident came one day after the United States and its Gulf War allies forced Saddam Hussein to remove newly deployed anti-aircraft missiles from the UN-mandated no-fly zone in southern Iraq. The U.S. told Saddam Hussein if he crosses the Allies again, he can expect to be hit hard with no additional warning. A short time ago, I spoke with CBS White House correspondent Randall Pinkston about this latest incident.
As far as a specific reaction to this incident, we're told to look at the most recent comment made by Press Secretary Marlin Fitzwater. You may recall, following the removal of the surface-to-air weapons, Fitzwater said that no violations of UN monitoring by Iraq would be tolerated. And we're told that's the White House position tonight.
What about the number of Iraqis that were involved in this raiding party, as it was described? How many Iraqis were there, and were U.S. forces involved in any way?
The Pentagon tells us no U.S. forces were involved. The numbers vary in terms of how many Iraqis there were and whether or not they were armed. The best report we are getting comes through sources from abroad, from Reuters primarily, indicating anywhere from 200 to 500 Iraqis, described mostly as unarmed workers, took part in the actual operation, moving across the border, surrounding UN vehicles, moving on 6 ammunition bunkers, removing those weapons, and then retreating back into Iraqi territory.
Today, Saddam Hussein's government issued a statement outlining restrictions that would bar UN weapons inspectors from flying into Iraq, hampering the UN efforts to destroy weapons of mass destruction. The head of the UN inspector says this latest move could prompt military action by the Allies. Reggie.
Turning now to events here at home, the big story is snow. It's been falling for several hours in most of our area. You are looking now live at a picture from Central Park where there's already been some accumulation. With more now on how much we can expect and what the morning commute might look like, we go to Frank Field in the Weather Center. Frank.
Well, Reggie, the big problem tomorrow morning, of course, will be slick roads. The ground is frozen, and the light snow, which began falling over central New Jersey sometime later this afternoon, has already accumulated to 2 inches. In some portions of central New Jersey, here in the city, about 3/4 of an inch. The light snow will continue right through the morning hours, which means a possible accumulation between 2 to 3 inches. And we expect that in the colder areas, particularly west of the city, they may get as much as 4 inches, less out over eastern Long Island. So quite a variable mixture, but no major amount of snow that would really stick the city. Just a kind of snowfall that will make travel tomorrow morning during the commute a little on the difficult side, so folks should give themselves some extra time. I'll have more when I get back in the studio.
Thank you, Frank. No matter how much snow we get, getting ready for a storm is a big job. Correspondent Pat Battle was out earlier to check on the preparations to keep the roads clear for the morning rush hour.
They've been watching and waiting all weekend for the first significant snowfall forecast for New York City and the surrounding area this year. And in New York City, even 1 to 3 inches is significant.
They say that the people in Montreal laugh at the people in Boston, and the people in Boston laugh at us. But the fact of the matter is a city like New York City doesn't have any excess traffic capacity. And so it's really critical to get the streets cleared as quickly as possible when there is snow.
The last big snowfall here was in March of 1992. Less than 6 inches fell, but that was enough to remind sanitation workers that all it takes is one snow-related accident to tie up a major artery for hours. So for sanitation, the bottom line is be prepared. And 350 trucks are standing by, already loaded with salt and sand and plows attached, though they won't start plowing unless or until the accumulation reaches about 2 inches. Plows can be attached to another 700 sanitation trucks to bring the complement to a total of 1,000 if they're needed.
if we do get accumulation, there's men on standby that are ready to act as soon as possible. At a moment's notice, we're ready.
But of course, no one was ready last month when this monster nor'easter tore into the area, wreaking havoc along the shorelines of New Jersey and New York, with surging tides and ravaging winds that forced hundreds of evacuations, shut down the city's transit system, and put major roadways underwater. But it seems the department is determined to be ready for whatever this storm brings. A good snowstorm can make or break a commissioner. Is that true?
That's what I'm told. I haven't had to deal with that so far, but the department is very well prepared.
Within minutes of those first flakes that started to fall, activity was already picking up here at the so-called salt pit down at the sanitation yard. These guys will be working through the night, or at least until that snow stops falling, and through the morning if necessary. But one word to motorists, and the word always is caution. Pat Battle, Channel 2 News.
Homeowners along Dune Road have more than the snow to worry about tonight. Tides today were the highest since last month's devastating storm. Dunes damaged by that storm offered little protection from today's tides. There was more flooding and even more homes were washed away. Today's tides also widened the gaps made by the December storm in Long Island's narrow barrier islands.
And the high tides affected more than just people and their homes. A harbor seal, perhaps weakened by illness, was washed in, then stranded in this Staten Island creek bed. Residents found the seal and called police this afternoon. Tonight, the seal is recuperating in the Hamptons at the Okeanos Ocean Research Foundation. Well, when Channel 2 News continues, Crazy Eddie's long run from the law is over. Tonight, the former electronics king is in a Newark jail cell. He'll face federal charges tomorrow.
Also tonight, would you believe, 2 St. Patrick's Day parades? The latest on who will run the annual march up Fifth Avenue.
Local Chevy Geo dealer.
Crazy Eddie Antar's long run from the law is over tonight. Tomorrow, the former discount electronics king will be arraigned on charges he defrauded investors of millions of dollars. The 45-year-old tycoon was led into the federal courthouse in Newark tonight after being extradited from Israel. 3 years ago, Antar fled the United States, allegedly with millions of stolen dollars. Antar was arrested in Israel in June, where he had been living under an assumed name.
I knew where he was, but I couldn't arrest him. I knew where he was after the fact. But as I said, within 60 days of the criminal indictment, he was in custody, so I think that was pretty outstanding.
The federal marshal who was handcuffed to Antar while escorting him back to the United States called his prisoner a gentleman.
The 24-year-old New Jersey woman who was missing for nearly 4 days is apparently safe and sound tonight, but the mystery isn't over. Police talked today with Eileen McCarthy, but there's no word yet on why she vanished from a friend's home Wednesday morning. The restaurant where she works as a bartender had offered a $5,000 reward for information. Then late last night, McCarthy was spotted in Manasquan by a passerby who recognized her from the television news stories. And the New Jersey man who disappeared from a psychiatric hospital last week is back under a doctor's care tonight. Herbert Olson was discovered today at a Manhattan hotel. Olson was committed in 1991 after stabbing his parents. While he was loose, police kept a 24-hour guard on their house.
New York City may soon have more black officers in blue uniforms. The number of African Americans applying for the next police examination is reportedly way up. The police department has been actively recruiting minorities, and apparently those efforts are proving successful. The New York Times reports applications from blacks jumped 6% in just the last 3 months. Today, Mayor Dinkins called it a hopeful sign.
I think it's very important, as I have said and as the police commissioner has said, it's important that the police force be reflective of our population.
Right now, the city's police force is 11.5% black. That's less than half the percentage of African Americans in the city's general population. Carol?
Well, Reggie, tomorrow the Ancient Order of Hibernians goes to court to fight the decision by Police Commissioner Ray Kelly giving the permit for this year's St. Patrick's Day parade to another group. One suggestion has been to allow 2 parades. The group now holding the permit has agreed to let a gay group march. The Hibernians will not let them march. Today, in his sermon, John Cardinal O'Connor got into the argument supporting the Hibernians. The Cardinal says the parade should not be turned from a religious event into a political one.
As Christians and as citizens, however, we will exercise our right to question and to disagree, and to honor St. Patrick, patron saint of the Archdiocese of New York, in accord with church teaching.
The Ancient Order of Hibernians has sponsored the parade for the last 139 years.
Well, up next, Dr. Frank Field rejoins us with the latest on the snow.
If you have to commute tomorrow morning, stay tuned. We'll tell you what driving could be like. Channel 2 News. Snow, snow, snow. They wrote a song about it, but it may not be music to our ears.
Make it go away.
Well, there was sufficient warning. We've had an indication of light snow moving in. It's the same storm that gave Chicago about 8 inches of snow. So we're lucky because it's been weakening as it heads to the east. And the indications are now that road conditions will be on the slippery side tomorrow morning. Give yourself some extra time. Right now in the Midtown area, the humidity is 92%. Temperature is 23 degrees, 21 at White Plains. Our high today was barely 27 degrees, well below normal. The light snow which moved in late this afternoon, beginning over central and southern New Jersey, is now passed across the entire three-state area. Most of the heavier stuff is off to the west, and also a little light snow falling over the eastern end of Long Island. That light snow will continue through tonight. Let's take a look at the radar pictures. You can get a better idea of what has been happening. As the snow began to move in, it began to accumulate around Monmouth County and in northwestern New Jersey up to about 1 inch to 2 inches. And we expect the total amount, it's not one of those big dig amounts, it's just a lot of slippery conditions because the ground is cold and whatever falls will stick. And in those areas that are not treated, that will make for slick going during the early morning rush hours. But the major storm system itself affected the upper Midwest. Weakening as it moves through, it will pass through, it will end tomorrow morning. So again, from 1 to 2 to 3 inches, varying upon just about where you live. Maximum amounts expected about 4 inches off to the west of the city. So for tonight, the forecast, light snow continuing. Early morning rush hour may be a little difficult, especially on those areas that are not sanded. And then at noon tomorrow, cloudy skies, just a few scattered snow flurries will linger through the day, nothing of any significance. A very cold night for tomorrow night. And then a quick change in weather once again, another weather system heading this way, but this time, with temperatures getting above freezing on Tuesday, we expect a mixture of rain and snow combined, and maybe a little more rain than snow.
Kind of a slushy mess there.
Yeah, winter is here.
Thank you, Frank. Coming up, it was one of the worst mass killings in the Chicago area in years. Tonight, police are questioning a former cook at the restaurant where 7 bodies were discovered.
Also tonight, the weather's creating big problems at the scene of that oil tanker grounded off the coast of Scotland. The consequences when...
Ultimate role of the ultimate driving machine.
The first ever ceasefire between rival warlords is in effect tonight in Somalia, at least on paper. The 14 warring factions meeting in Ethiopia agreed today to an immediate truce, and they agreed to disarm by March 1st. It follows a day of heavy fighting, including one incident in which a delegation of American congressmen was fired on by a sniper. No one was hurt in that attack, but U.S. Marines killed 3 Somalis in another exchange, and clan fighting was reported heavy along the so-called Green Line, which divides Mogadishu. There's no word yet if the ceasefire is being honored.
Well, talks resumed today in Geneva aimed at finding a solution to the 9-month war in the Balkans. That tops tonight's other news from around the world. Representatives for the Bosnian Serbs apologized publicly for Friday's assassination of a vice premier, but the talks hit a familiar stumbling block soon after. Cyrus Vance, representing the UN, says Bosnian Serbs are still demanding a separate state. That's a position rejected by all other factions. Lebanon says there will be no more airlifts to the freezing tent city on its borders. Yesterday, the Red Cross evacuated 2 Palestinians, one of them ill with kidney disease. But Lebanon's prime minister says the flight was only approved as a fact-finding mission, and he banned future flights. Israel expelled the Palestinians last month. Lebanon has refused to accept them. And for a 6th day, hurricane-force winds are keeping salvage workers from reaching the wreck of the oil tanker Brer. Hundreds of birds have now been killed by the spreading slick. Experts think more than half the oil is still on board, but heavy seas and winds have made it impossible to unload it. Gusts of more than 100 miles an hour are predicted for tomorrow. Experts worry another day of pounding could break the hull completely apart.
Police in suburban Chicago won't say that they have a suspect in the mass slayings of 7 people at a fast food restaurant, but they have held a former employee for questioning. All day, police have scoured the Brown's Chicken and Pasta restaurant for clues. The 7 victims were discovered yesterday morning, shot to death on the floor of the walk-in refrigerator. The The man being held, 23-year-old Martin Blake, is a former cook at the restaurant. Police won't say what led them to Blake, but a local newspaper reports that Blake may have been turned in by friends.
Up next, it goes down.
Coming up, a